to find that Russian soldier from a particular town and to tell his story and provide public with indisputable evidence that these are Russian troops, right? It's very important for the media to pay attention to things not just when they burst into the headlines. Right now, not enough. Afghanistan, Iraq, and I know, like, all of my Ukrainian friends, everyone has moved on to something else, to another
Let's
story.
hope that doesn't happen too soon.
Natalia,
thank you very much.
I think
Let's
Ukrainians
stop
have
here
done
first,
a spectacular
and can I ask
job
you later to
pushing.
come back into the discussion again? Let me turn to Mykola for a second, please. Thank you. I want to ask Mykola something before I turn the microphone also over to the audience if they want to ask a question to the speakers then. Mykola, I think we can all agree that propaganda, fake news, disinformation is also there to create doubt about the facts that we hear, about the news we see on TV or here on the radio. And your job is also now, as we have been discussing, to talk about what's happening in Ukraine. And for Western journalists or any journalist right now, it's very hard to verify what's happening there. So how do you make sure that you rebuild trust? I think this is very important when we talk about information and news, that there's trust enough, that there's support. Tell us a little bit how you do that.
Well, thank you for this question. I think that it's been said in this discussion, and those are the basics, this hygiene, the fact checking, basically just staying strong on what we believe is true and keep this narrative going, just consistently, day by day, adding with a piece of evidence that this war is unjust, right? This war is unprovoked. All those casualties would have never happened if Vladimir Putin once decided to invade Ukraine for blitzkrieg, for something like a 3-day operation, right? So we will not try, at least I'm speaking on behalf of my team, we will not try to just go into this back and forth with the false narrative coming from Russia. On the other hand, we are going to just make our narrative more attractive and stronger and more appealing, and looking for compassion within the public rather than just simple same idea that we understood is that when they're saying something utterly untrue, conveying a message. If you remember one of his press conferences in the beginning of war, that happened right after Vladimir Putin met with some imaginary people. He was obviously sitting in the backdrop of a green screen, right?
Yeah.
And everything was projected. His meeting was I don't remember, it was just a group of people, obviously they were seated in some kind of studio, right? And Putin was sitting in the backdrop of that green screen. So when he moved his hand, all this fake. So President
we encountered
Zelensky
almost everywhere. Yes.
Yeah. So when President Zelensky came next day to talk to media, to press, he just did this absolutely fantastic joke. Just basically made the same motion with his hand and just
he ridiculed it.
Closed,
yes.
It turned the microphone. That whatever you hear on the other side is fake, and I'm real. I can move the microphone. Yes. Whenever I touch microphone, it really moves. Thank you.
Can I just jump in is it possible to just make one comment?
Yes, of course. But I would also like to include the audience. We don't have too much time anymore, Natalia. If you can make it quick, please.
I'll make it very quick. I think it's very, very important to distinguish between disinformation and propaganda. I think these are two completely different things. And Ukraine is engaged in propaganda, as every country is, every country that is at war. Most countries anyway, but especially a country that is at war. And Ukraine has done a spectacular job with getting their message out. But it's very different from engaging in propaganda is very different when at the time of war is very different from disinformation and fake news. And I think that's a really, really important distinction to make.
Thank you very much for this comment. Now I would like to give the floor to the audience. It's now your chance to address our panelists, online or here. Who wants to go first? Here? Okay, please, the microphone.
First of all, it's such a great success to see people like what Abbas is doing and really appreciate that CAS can make this happen. When you have initiatives like Debunk, makes me really excited. Just a day ago, an investigative journalist sent me a Silicon Valley, please, I also need to be informed, so I can't run away from this. And maybe this is me asking for group therapy from you, Grace, and that's almost impossible. But I came here because I was motivated for the psychology behind social media, because that's close to my heart, but I've seen my own personal struggles in the mental health space. And there are actual tools that one could use at that front. I don't know if my question is clear, but it's actual tools that we could use. Otherwise, I'm running away from being informed because I really want to be sane, and the news is overwhelming.
Okay. I think it comes down to your emotional resilience, and that one is built over time. Yeah? The way you react to things and the way you train your brain to react or respond to particular information. Yeah? I don't know if I can name any tools, but it would take what you allow to bother you, what you, that place. Yeah?
To Benson, maybe.
My question is, okay, one, for the gentleman in Ukraine, are you using disinformation in the name of propaganda? That's my first one. The second one is for anyone in the panel. We know that attention scientists generally will advise big tech to give you content, like Vincent said, that is skewed towards what you like. Do you guys think that big tech is doing enough to tackle it? Google has algorithms that can get at least about 74% of fake news. Do you think Twitter, and what would the enough look like?
Thank you. Vincent, maybe you want to take that later, but first let's go to Mikola answering the question. Mikola?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
To help our cause, because, you know, it just makes no sense. It will make no sense to create, you know, some sort of lies to fight the lies, right? So the best thing is just to put the light on what's happening, all right? So, you know, international, that I talk about, of course, our intentions, but when it comes to the mechanisms that we use in our job, of course, is we are very serious about fact-checking. So we will not do anything post something. We will check it and double-check it, and the experts will look at it. only then it's going public. So this is my answer to that.
One truth over another, to use some kind of, I think the support for Ukraine will also automatically decrease if you sow doubt on how they report on facts and so on. So I think it's really a question of life and death for the Ukrainians, that they try to stick as close as they can to the truth. That's my interpretation of their role. But now let's turn to Vincent, who has an answer to your second question, Vincent.
Okay, there we go. So, no, I don't think big tech is doing enough. I mean, even in context of the legal events that have been happening in Africa, where we now know that, for example, Facebook was, it is now possible to sue Facebook in Kenyan courts over their moderation work in this country. And whether the people who are doing this work are adequately compensated for what they were doing and what they were going through. But in addition to that, a lot of